Hello, it is Jay. I hope you're having a nice Easter break. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to do a little presentation on informational interviewing. You're probably asking yourself, why do I have to do this? Or maybe you're asking yourself, why is Jay making us do this? Fair questions. Hopefully I'll be able to answer that by the time we're done with this workshop. You'll have to let me know. So the primary reason is I want to open some doors for you. And if you want someone to blame other than me, we can blame Nelson Bowles. Who is that, you may ask? You're probably thinking, isn't that the guy who produced Guts, the Olivia Rodrigo album? Maybe it's our new vice president of academic affairs. Nice typo there. The tech guy responsible for the Wordle, maybe? The new host of Jeopardy, or Jay with hair? Actually, it's none of those. It's the guy who coined the term informational interviewing. And he did it in this book, What Color is Your Parachute? This is the 2013 edition. But this has been around probably since the 1990s, I want to say, is when I first encountered it. I'm going to be honest with you. I hate this book. I hate almost everything about it. Really, the only thing I like about it is informational interviews. His big thing is he had said that one of the saddest lines in the world is, "Oh, come now, be realistic. The best parts of this world were not fashioned by those who were realistic. They were fashioned by those who dared to look hard at their wishes and gave them horses to ride." I've done an informational interview, and I'm including some actual footage of the one that I did. It did not go well, as you've probably gathered from the video evidence. But it is a powerful tool when executed properly. And I'm going to give you the insight to be able to avoid the mistakes I made. So why these matter? They help you to identify the right people. They help you to get comfortable and master your pitch, and to get really good at something I've kind of mastered, which is asking passive questions. Passive, great when asking questions, horrible when doing bullet points on your resume. It also helps you to get referrals, and we want to ask for those because we want to widen that network that we talked about in one of the previous lectures. Or, depending on what order you're watching these, maybe one of the next lectures. So what is informational interviewing? It's really, if we're going to boil it down to its most basic formula, it's talking to people about their job and asking them for advice. Sounds painless enough. And you're wondering, why would anyone want to do that with me? Fair question. Why would anyone want to do that with you? Well, first of all, it's flattering. It makes us feel like we matter. And let's be honest, most people have low self-esteem, and someone knocks on the door and is like, "Hey, Mr. Expert, I want to glean all the knowledge I can from your wizened mind. Teach me." That's kind of flattering. And I think we all need that from time to time. There's also a psychological aspect to this. It's a framework rooted in the Ben Franklin effect, which suggests that allowing someone to do you a favor is an incredibly powerful way to gain his or her loyalty. He that has once done you a kindness will be more ready to do you another than he whom you yourself have obliged. It's a funny thing. I think we've all experienced it when someone does us a favor. On the other hand, we feel obligated to them, and we feel like we are at a disadvantage, and we may even resent it a little bit. Oddly enough, the opposite is also true of the person who grants the favor. And an explanation for this is cognitive dissonance, that the reason people like people they help is because they help people they like, and their brain struggles to balance out the idea that, okay, if I do favors for people I like, and I've done a favor for this person, it's hard for the mind to say, but I don't like this person. And so it creates what we would call a cognitive dissonance. And so therefore, I've done you a favor, I must like you. I know that sounds like psychobabble, but try it out. Just to be clear, it has nothing to do with electrocuting anyone. But you may be able to get away with electrocuting people if you do a research project for the Experiential Learning Showcase. So that's something to think about. Maybe you could even do a internship and present at the showcase. If you're not sure what that's all about and you are on campus and in the area, you should definitely check it out. Friday, April 26th, here in my building, in the library and outside the library, they're going to be having all sorts of things going, including a food truck. So, and prizes. And I know what you're thinking right now. Wow, we're only like 6 slides in and we already have our first Muppet. Fair point. So again, it goes back to Dale Carnegie. You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can make in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. If someone comes to me and is like, Mr. Marshall, I'd really be interested in this field. Could I buy you a coffee? My brain actually shuts off at the word coffee, and it's a yes. You want me to commit murder? You brought me a cup of coffee? Who needs to die? I'm kidding. We're a Catholic institution. I didn't say that. But I like a large black coffee. And you could just innocently enough send me the photograph and contact information of the person. No. What it is not, I want to be very clear, and this is the reason why my informational interview was a dumpster fire. It is not a job interview. It is not a time to ask for a job. I did that. And it was amazing how fast they got me out into the parking lot. And so we want to be very clear on what an informational interview is versus a job interview. Job interview, pretty basic, right? It's all about being the one selected for the job, and you're the interviewee. Informational interview is very different. There's no expectation of a job offer. There's no expectation of an internship offer. The focus is instead on gaining knowledge, specifically about the career, the work history experience of the person who you're interviewing with. In fact, you may be interviewing with somebody who is not even in a position to make hiring decisions. I always laugh because I get probably once a month a in message from LinkedIn, from someone at LinkedIn saying, Jay, want to superpower your recruitment for your new hiring? And that's cute, but I don't actually do any hiring other than my work studies. So, and whenever they ask, Jay, are you hiring? And I click no. You would think that somewhere in the mighty LinkedIn computerized artificial intelligence module, they'd be like, oh, maybe we shouldn't send that, but I digress. So the person you interview with may not actually have any power to make a hiring decision. And very important, you're the interviewer. You're the one asking the questions. You're in control, which is both exciting and terrifying at the same time. So we won't want to slip in, hey, how about an internship, right? Because that's playing a little bit dirty. And it's not going to be successful in most cases. Now, I know there is a school of sales that says, take the shot, make the ask, make the ask. If they say no, listen to the objections and then try to effectively deconstruct those objections and get them from no to yes. And those are usually the people I end up hanging up on. I get a knock on my door. First of all, I'm irritated. I hate it when people knock on my door. I open my door at my personal residence and someone's there. And I'm like, yes. And they start asking me about my energy needs. And I'm like, and you are? Oh, solar? No, I'm sorry. I'm not interested. Can I ask you why? No, you can't. Go away. I'm calling the cops. We get a solar person probably once a month. And I actually like solar power, but until they get better salespeople, I'm not even going to talk to them about it. So when you lead with going into an informational interview and say, hey, how about that internship? They're immediately going to start offering up objections because you're making them uncomfortable. Insurance liability. Oh, I don't have time to do all the paperwork. It's going to be a hassle. I'm really not supposed to be supervising people. I don't know if corporate's going to sign off on it. Nah, I'm just going to, no. However, if you lead with, do you have any advice on where I might find an internship? Now I'm thinking, and like, oh, wait, we actually have interns here. In fact, we're opening up the intern process in June. Yeah, I'll send you the listings. See how different that is? And it can be that kind of a cause and effect because it's their idea. You made it their idea, not your idea. I'm cheating. I put a gratuitous dog picture. So if you end up being offered, if you have this amazing interview where they're just like, wow, you're just really the kind of person we're looking for, and they offer you a job or internship, great, that's fine, that's wonderful, but don't expect it. It can and has happened, but that's not what the intent of the informational interview is, and that is very rare. And so we just want to be clear about that. That's not our goal. And we want to avoid the bait and switch. Hi, Mr. Marshall, I want to buy you a cup of coffee and hear about your job. And then you show up and don't bring me a coffee. I mean, there's cruel, and then there's just plain evil. And the same thing is when you come in for an informational interview, but you're really, let's be honest, you're trying to trap me into a job or an internship opportunity. And so play fair, play clean. And if you're not familiar with a bait and switch, here's a brief definition. In retail sales, when customers are lured by advertisements for a product at a low price, then find that the product is not available, but a more expensive substitute is. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that 2024 Crosstrack, we're all sold out. But we have the Outback, which is only like 10 grand more. I can get you into that today. In many states, it's illegal. It might even be illegal now at the federal level. I'm not sure. I don't sell cars anymore. Whew. Sold cars for 2 weeks. That did not go well. I did sell one car. It was a used car. Instead, we want to play the long game. We want to develop relationships with the people we're connecting with over time, invest in them, nurture them so that they grow, and then gradually can pay dividends. And that's really what we're doing when we're constructing our LinkedIn network as well. Playing the long game, not looking for the immediate gratification. Now, why would you ever want to do one of these informational interviews? And you're like, Jay, I don't. I saw this on the module and I cringed and I said, wow, that Jay, he's a first-class jerk. Fair. But there are some legitimate benefits. It's a chance to find out less appealing parts of the job before you're stuck in it. It's a chance to make sure the job is a good fit for you. And again, not everything's 100%. It may not be a good fit for you today. It might be a good fit for you later. And maybe you have a young family. And this job requires a lot more travel than you realized. And you're going to be on the road a lot. And you may have to reintroduce yourself to your children and family pets. That might not be the best time to take on this kind of a role. Good to find that out now. And it's also a chance to build, and we've got to constantly be feeding and nurturing and growing our network. And so we don't want to miss this opportunity. I'll tell you, when I did my second informational interview, it was fantastic because I really learned that it may have been in my second class, and I was pursuing a grad program for mental health licensed clinician. And at the time, with that degree, you couldn't get qualified for third-party billing. And so in order to practice, you were always going to be billing under someone else's credentials. And I don't mean in a identity theft kind of way, but someone with an MSW, they could, you could do it under them. but then you would never be able to go off on your own if you wanted to. That would be, whether or not you wanted to at the time, that would be an option that would be closed to you. And so that, and then finding out about all the number of hours of unpaid counseling that I would have to do in order to become licensed. And I suddenly realized, maybe this isn't the program for me. And ultimately it was good that I had that experience, because I realized it wasn't the right program for me, and I was going in the wrong direction. And so I'm glad I had that informational interview, because I was able to move in a different direction ultimately. Other benefits: practice. It's good practice for meeting with strangers and communicating effectively, taking on a leadership role, facilitating. A lot of good experience, things you can actually use when you interview for a job. It's also a chance to do a little bit of background research, find out more about the field you're going into, find out about maybe aspects of the field you aren't aware of. And that could lead to career options you wouldn't have even been able to consider before. It also allows you to do kind of like that 2-page paper assignment, that reverse engineering. So you can see, except you're doing it live with the person, how they progress to get to where they are now, which hopefully is a position that you are interested in ultimately reaching. And the key here, though, is they can share where they actually experienced some unplanned detours, or where they made mistakes that if they could do it all over again, they would say, well, you know what? I made a mistake going with this job in this company, because it then delayed me being able to, and it took me several years to kind of get around that. I want you to be able to find those pitfalls that could get in the way of realizing your career goals. And I want you to find them out now so you can avoid them as you're planning. And also get you moving. 90% of career development is just doing something, taking action, getting in gear, and just getting out of your head and just getting out there. And so that's why we're doing it. Yes, that is the second Muppet in the presentation. But he's wearing a sweater, right? Anyway. It really is like any other interview, except you're asking the questions. So all the same interview rules apply. We're going to be organized. You're going to actually schedule it with the person. You're going to make the ask, hey, you're doing exactly what I'm looking to do, and if there's some resistance, you can always say, hey, we can do it in 20 minutes. I'll buy you a cup of coffee. I just want to pick your brain. But you want to do your research ahead of time, really kind of scour their LinkedIn profile, see if you can find out any information about their company, about them, about the field. Have a goal in mind that you want to learn about from this experience, maybe even write it ahead of time. You got to go in there prepared with already identified questions. I would even practice the questions out loud a few times so you're confident in them. But you got to have questions. You can't be going, I like cheese. Do you like cheese? That won't go well. You don't want to waste their time or their energy. And you don't want to waste an opportunity to present yourself as a credible future professional, right? You only get one chance to make a good first impression. And we always want to follow up with a thank you within 24 hours. I prefer it mailed. If you got to use email, but make it meticulous, right? No typos, no bizarre capitalization things going on, right? And be professional. Avoid being too casual. Yes, at one time I thought I could get away with spandex. This is back in my running days when I was doing 15 miles a night. I blame the endorphins. Very important. When you ask a question, listen to the answer. Now, most people are getting really comfortable with phones. And so if you want to record this on your phone, most people are not going to have an objection to that. If you want to video record it, they're probably going to be all right with that. That can be a little trickier. That way you can get, in most cases, if you run it up through the YouTube, you can get an actual transcript of it, right? That you can then cut and paste and then kind of neatly clean up or play back. You also want to take really good notes, because just appearing like you're taking notes is going to seem like you're taking it very seriously, and they're going to appreciate that because they took time out of their day. They could be doing something else. They're making time for you. And so we want to be respectful of that. You are the timekeeper. And so if they say, I've only got 20 minutes, you got to be the one watching the clock. And as we're getting up to minute 19, even if it's going fantastic, you don't know, they may have a very critical meeting with some vice president that they've got to get to. So be respectful of that. And you must say at that point, this is so fantastic. I really appreciate everything you're sharing with me. I know you said you only had 20 minutes. We're at 19 minutes now. I'd love to continue talking to you, but I want to be respectful of your time. So let me know if we need to shut this down now. And that's appropriate. Don't let them get off on a roll, lose track of time, and end up getting suspended, right? Because that's not going to help you build your network. They may be looking to you for some job leads, right? Yeah. And we want to research. We want to do our research, right? So again, go in there prepared. And ask really good questions. Don't act like Barbara Walters, who used to, you'd be like, who the heck is Barbara Walters? You probably don't even remember that she was one of the original hosts of The View. What the heck is The View? So she is a journalist. She's retired now, but in the 70s and 80s, early 80s, she had these major primetime interview specials where she would interview famous people who were famous in the late 70s and early 80s, and she would ask them some pretty ridiculous questions, and all of America would go, that's not what I would ask them. But she actually asked one person, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? That might be why we don't do Barbara Walters specials anymore. And we want to send that thank you. Now, we're going to break the informational interview down into 3 distinct phases. Small talk is first, questions and answers, and then next steps. So you just don't want to go in cold like, you're working for the New York Times and you're ambushing the governor as he's leaving his office with some sort of economic scandal, some auditing tribulations, some horrible, egregious act of misconduct or malfeasance or neglect, right? You want to warm it up. And this is going to kind of make it more comfortable for both of you. So some small talk, A lot of times if you're meeting in person, you may notice that they have pictures in their office. Oh, you have dogs? Well, that just opens me up. I'll be honest. Oh, is that your wife? Or, oh, you attended Georgetown? Or, oh, there are ways to kind of, oftentimes just from what little items they have around there. I have way too much. Oh, why is there a Japanese symbol there? Well, we had a delegation of students visiting us from Kochi University. And so, yeah. What's with the stuffed elephant? Well, we had Build-A-Blazer on campus. And anyway, you can see me working there. And then questions and answers in the next steps. So questions and answers. And so do I need to break that down, right? You're going to have prepared questions. You're going to ask those questions, and hopefully they're going to answer those questions. I don't know if I can break that down any further. And then next steps is how we're going to close, right? But I want you to use the Tiara framework. And I've been using this PowerPoint for a few years and just realized, oh no, I've got Princess Kate, and she just had some really horrible medical news. So keeping her in our thoughts. I'm kind of a big royalist. I shouldn't admit this, but I'm one of those few people who don't really understand what the legal justification for the American Revolution is. I think we should still be British. We should still be servants of His Royal Majesty the King. That may be why they don't let me speak on political matters at Elms College. But anyway, TIARA is an acronym for the 5 areas we're going to cover in your informational interview. So it's trends, insights, advice, resources, and assignments. So trends. What can you tell me about what's going on in the field right now? What are some trends you're noticing? What's really surprised you in what's been going on? How has it changed most since you first started? What surprised you? How do you think this area is going to change most dramatically in the next several years? Those kinds of questions are a great way to kind of get at, where is this field going? What can I expect when I get in there? And then insights. What surprises you most about your job, your field, your employer? What's the best lesson you've learned on the job? What's been your most valuable experience at your employer so far, and why? If you had to attribute your success to one skill or trait, what would it be? And is that something shared across the organization, or is it unique and you've adapted it to your advantage? It's always good to go into a situation with a very good index of your own strengths and weaknesses. And so, yes, you may be one of many SLPA majors, but what's different about you? Maybe you have had some experience that is unique. Maybe you did something in education. And so now that's something else you're bringing to the table. Maybe it is, personal quality. There may be something about, but we need to have that insight into our own value before we can really project it to others. And so it all ties into our unique value proposition. And so other people have those too. Like someone may have been, maybe they were an accountant before they were an SLPA. You might be like, well, what does that have to do with speech language pathology? And, they are really good at documenting and billing and really have an insight into that aspect of the business. And so they've caught mistakes that have saved the practice from not properly being compensated for their services. I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there. Free advice. They may have some tips for you on what you can do now, even before you graduate, to prepare yourself for this career. And some things that, oh, wow, I really wish I'd done this when I was your age, or at that stage, going through my education, or, some folks have come out with this and it's really given them a head start. Or, if someone came out and had this, almost all of us would be interested, because that's a really dynamic set of skills to have in addition to the education. So, and that leads right into, what do you know now that you wished you'd known when you were in my position? I think I shared with you the example of the DPT, the doctor of physical therapy, who didn't realize until the last semester of their 6-year, very expensive program that they didn't like touching people, only realized it when they were out on clinicals. If only they'd known that before they started incurring all that debt, that there was a deal breaker in the very basic aspects of the job, touching people. I get it. I don't really like touching people. But, what are you going to do? Resources. What should I look into next? Who else should I be reaching out to? What next steps would you recommend for someone in my situation? Great questions to ask. You'll notice something in common between all these questions, and they're all open-ended. Let them run with it. See where it takes them. Don't shut them down. Let them run free. And just by listening actively, you're making them like you even more. And that's something that, if you nurture that relationship, could pay dividends long term. And then assignments, finally. What projects have you done that you felt added the most value? Have any projects increased in popularity recently at your organization? Have you had interns, new graduates in the past? If so, what have they done? This helps you in two ways, okay? On the one hand, it kind of identifies some things you could do now that would impress them and others in the industry when you're looking for jobs, things that you could pull out of a portfolio or from your Google or e-portfolio that you can showcase. But it also helps you have some suggestions for when you are looking into internships to be able to say, when they're like, oh, I don't even know what we'd have you do. Well, I have 4 or 5 ideas right here. Let me run them through and see if any of these might be a match. And it gives you something to bring to the table. Or maybe they're just like, hey, we're really excited to have you as an intern. Really want to hear what you're interested in working on. And it really is very demoralizing for everyone, including you, when you're like, oh, I hadn't really thought about that. So this helps you prepare for that. So Tiara, this is going to help you make that connection with this person and mine it for really valuable intel about the field, about that company, about that person. And, you know, over the course of the interview, you want to manifest a shift, facilitate a shift so that your questions are going to change so that you're connecting with them more on a personal level as if they're your mentor or coach as you try to turn them into becoming an advocate for you. If this sounds a lot like what secret agents do when they're trying to turn someone to be a spy for them, maybe it's somebody who works in the Ministry of Intelligence or the Ministry of Commerce, and they want to turn them into a spy asset, right? It is kind of the same thing, but try not to think about that aspect because there's a reason they do it. It's very effective and you can use it for good too. And look at that. It was under 4 hours. So thank you. And if you're watching this before or after Easter, happy Easter. And I hope you had a great Easter if you celebrate. If not, I hope you had a wonderful break. And thank you for being Elms. And thank you for doing this assignment, even though you're probably not too keen on it. But it is a lot of the percentage of your grade, as you'll notice when you look on the syllabus. So do take it seriously. But I just want you to know that I value you. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. And I've been enjoying your work. So thank you. And maybe we can be a little easier on you. Thank you.